Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and kick off. As mentioned, I'm joined by Dave Roberts on the product management team. He's our senior manager, especially around the reporting, and helps on SmartView as well. And then Shaji Puthambidu, who's our senior director of development. So I think I'll draw them into the conversation periodically as we go through here, but they'll definitely be staffing the Q&A. So any questions you have, please use Q&A so we can get to those and answer them in line. And so we'll just jump in right away. We'll talk a little bit about some roadmap and futures, but really what we're going to do here is talk about SmartView in both of its incarnations, right? So we have the SmartView for Windows client. That's the more robust, the one that's been around for quite a while. I think going back all the way to 2004, or at least where it made its appearance in the old R&D Central at Hyperion Solutions. So definitely a callback to one of those areas that first got a look at it and first got its introduction to the public through the old R&D Central, where we used to showcase a lot of work under development and other things that we would work on. And then we'll also talk about the SmartView client that's available for Office 365 hosted in the browser, or working with Office natively installed on the macOS. So we'll cover that as well, because obviously when you start to expose new functionality, there's always a question of parity and other things. So we'll kind of talk about where that's at in its trajectory and functionality it provides. And then a little bit of some works in progress we have. So because SmartView is so robust, it connects to so many sources and everything, we're not really going to be able to deep dive into very specific areas of functionality. We'll cover them broadly here, but certainly, feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A into what we can address here specifically, we will. And we'll also call out some specific ones at the end. So the fact that you're here means that you're probably very familiar with SmartView. Obviously, if you're using Hyperion on premises, if you're using EPM in the cloud, if you're using ERP in the cloud or something, you've certainly had exposure to it. And then, of course, good old Essbase, who's been around for a very long time as well, and whose main interface is through the spreadsheet add-in as the native tool to access it. So, we've grown in stature as cloud has expanded, like Planning Cloud has expanded into HCM for strategic workforce planning, or has gone into Sales Cloud with sales planning. More and more of our customers, more and more users are using SmartView on a regular basis. And so, our goal here, and what y'all know, is that, we try to replicate and provide a lot of the application functionality, even down to administrative features within SmartView. But we also provide a lot of the end user features, whether they're dealing with forms, whether they're executing business rules, attaching annotations or other comments, performing drill throughs, all those capabilities. Some people like to work in the office world, some want to use the web. So, we always have kind of that, we innovate in the cloud and web UI, then Shaji and team have to expose it in SmartView, or we do something really cool in SmartView, and then we figure out a way to expose it on the web. So when you look at this session here and you kind of marry it with some of the things that Shankar talks about from a platform, when he talks about some of the ad hoc querying, those types of things, that's where you kind of see there's a little bit of a innovate in one area and then work where you can expose it for the other interface, right? So we want to make sure that we not only exploit the features you like to use within the Office environment and make sure we don't restrict Office to any level there. It's also to make sure we can provide as much of a robust experience for the application user as possible, including, like we said, that guide rails on, I'm using forms, I'm entering data, and then I'm getting out, versus the ones that go full bore with ad hoc and pivoting and drilling in and trying to do reporting there and importing reports and other things. Try to make sure that we can straddle all that functionality. So SmartView in and of itself is one of the most complete products we have, and even from a Microsoft standpoint, as we've worked very closely with them, recognize that SmartView probably exercises more parts of the interfaces into Excel than any other third-party add-in that Microsoft works with. So they recognize all the areas we work with within there, right? So when you just take a step back and say, what are our objectives, what are our goals here, right? Because Rich and I have an on-premises session tomorrow, so I'm sure we'll get into a little bit about the on-premises strategy and everything there. But SmartView is going to continue to support all those on-premises applications we have. with Essbase 21C coming for on-prem, with 11.2 of EPM, etc. Obviously, we're going to continue to support those with the latest innovations within SmartView. So we always make sure SmartView supports all currently supported code lines. So there's not going to be a SmartView that kind of leaves you behind, where if you have some cloud functionality or cloud applications, and then you also have on-prem, that suddenly you have to make a decision on whether you upgrade SmartView or not because of support. You'll be supported as long as you're on actively supported code lines. You know, as I mentioned, and we'll get into details on SmartView with Office 365, either in a browser or on a Mac, is, you know, we did a first introduction here, and we've continued to enhance and offer new functionality there. That one's a bit of a very close partnership we have to have with Microsoft, because, you know, as we want to expand the feature set we have for SmartView on the non-Windows platform, we need them to expose interfaces for us, right? And so we give them a list of what those different interfaces are we need. They work on those interfaces, and then they provide us builds, and then we start to work on our functionality while we give them the next list to work on, knowing that we're just one of many inputs into their product roadmap, just like, you know, any single customer or any single partner is into the Oracle roadmap. You know, we all have to prioritize and work on those. So we have a very good relationship there. And so we continue to drive that forward because we want to have the full feature set available within there. So we want to continue to expand that. And, you know, we're going to look at, this one will be a little bit driven more by customer request, right? Do we need to offer that support for the on-prem applications? So for the HFM users, is the organization going to be going to a subscription-based deployment of Office that doesn't allow for deployments of the Office programs on the client machines, or are you going all browser only? Those types of things. So in those instances, we want to hear from you. On-prem is partially driven by customer request as part of the Apps Unlimited. So, you know, we talk about wanting to pursue this, but there's a lot of work that goes into it, because it's not just a SmartView effort, but there's a lot of work that goes into the back-end providers in order to have the thin client in the browser. Obviously with Essbase, I mentioned that already. It is the sole kind of native interface for Essbase, so we got to do work there. And then we'll talk again about some of the Office variants, right? So some of the work we've done and the re-architecture of SmartView to work within the non-Windows deployments of Office, such as in the browser. A lot of that work was done so that it could also be reused for other Office variants, right? So it's not like having to rewrite a whole add-in or the plugin for different architectures the way Google or LibreOffice is. Adobe InDesign. So this comes up a lot because of narrative reporting. Customers say, well, that's fine. We do our narrative, we go through that process, or I have financial statements that I need to publish to external parties, and we want to really pretty it up, and we want to do work beyond what I can do in an Office environment. We use Adobe InDesign. So we'll showcase a little bit of that, and then we'll talk about some of the scripting, automation, REST APIs that people also are asking about. The thing we wanted to make sure everybody is aware of is the numbering has evolved, right? So if you're on a version of SmartView and you haven't upgraded in a while, you're probably on like an 11.1.2.5.9.10 or something like that. Tying SmartView to any specific numbering set is challenging because we support on-premises, we support cloud. There's Essbase that's 21C. We have cloud, which is 20.xx for the month. So we kind of straddle a bit. We say we're going to number it based on the year, and then a numbering system that kind of aligns to a quarterly cadence, right? So 20.100 is kind of the first release we did in calendar year 2000, and then 20.200 will be the second one we do in the calendar year, et cetera. So it's gone to that numbering. The web or the Mac one's a little bit different just because it's a different build. We do that one as a 20.01 because that only supports cloud sources. We could align that one directly to our cloud numbering. So that's why you see a little difference in the numbering there. And they also have, a different release cadence because they are two separate code lines and they're kind of driven, their roadmaps are driven different because core SmartView, we're not so dependent on Microsoft to surface functionality. We're for the Mac web, we are. And we update that on, as I said, around 3 to 4 times a year, we'll be updating SmartView and fix those, you know, as needed for any defects or other things. And generally, you know, we support all those active code lines, but we do expect customers to stay somewhat current on SmartView. So that's a good old, hey, I've been running here, I'm fine, but now I did an upgrade of the source, you know, now planning or now EPM Cloud is 20.11 and I'm still on an old version of SmartView. You know, we would expect you to stay current because we're always doing, you know, our QE, our testing is always staying current with the last 2 releases against the supported code line. So, you know, we generally want you to go ahead and stay current to the extent you can. Okay, so let's talk a bit about SmartView for Office itself. This is the Windows client. We'll talk about some of the areas here. And just to kind of, I thought I got rid of all the builds, so I apologize for this. You know, I'll just click through all these just to give you an idea of all the different areas in which SmartView plays on Windows, all the different providers. So everything from EPM Cloud with narrative reporting, disclosure management, planning admin, SDM, CM. So all these different capabilities that are here, the extensions, other cloud providers, Fusion ERP, OBIE, OAC, and then all those extensions, right? So we have the extension framework, which, you know, we've updated in SmartView so that now, for example, if you use narrative reporting and there's a new extension available, SmartView will already notify you that there's a new extension available, and you can just one click to update that. So, you know, we've done things there to help guide you to make sure that you can stay current, but these are all the different pieces that go into SmartView today. Okay. You know, within SmartView on Windows, yeah, I won't go through everything we've done over the last, you know, several releases, but just more importantly, what we've done recently, and then we'll highlight a few of these, is, you know, update the sheet info so you could always see the last time that query was refreshed. So even if you kind of, you know, send it out and another user connects to it or opens up the workbook and you go look at the sheet info, you can see when the data was last updated or last retrieved into there. URL mapping is a really important kind of under the radar feature that I'm not sure a lot of folks are aware of. But, you know, if you have a lot of workbooks with a lot of connections in it, or you have, you know, different formulas, other things that are using connection information to a source, and you want to migrate that, or you're moving your environment. So say I'm going from 11.124 to 11.2, and now my servers are going to change because I'm getting new servers. You know, I don't want to go through all these workbooks I have and constantly, you know, go into every query and change the connection. Or I'm largely lifting and shifting my Essbase on-prem model. I'm going to put it into a free-form app, but I want to reuse all these worksheets I have because the metadata isn't really changing. So I want to reuse that. This URL mapping capability is really big. So it allows you to kind of do those. Even if you're going from, say, HFM to financial consolidation and close, and you're really keeping your dimensionality largely similar, or, you know, members are going to be the same, you could just go ahead and point, you know, you could just set this mapping at the high level and everything will inherit it within the workbook. You know, getting notifications when the automated maintenance window or that daily maintenance window is going to kick in. So like if you're on SmartView, you're actually going to get notified now, just like you do on the web, so that you can finish up your work and then get out. And then, of course, we're always working on performance and updating the libraries and other things we have associated in SmartView. So lots of cool things here. A little bit from the URL mapping. This is a little bit, we'll just have a couple of quick little recorded demos here. But you can see here we have, you know, a sheet that has, or we're going to create a quick workbook with a few queries in it that are going to a particular server, right? So I'm come in, you know, the normal thing, I'm going to connect to my source. You know, here I'm just going to get to the Vision app. I could go ahead and navigate down, maybe get to a form, open it up for ad hoc. So I'm going to go ahead, pick my my long range plan, do some analysis against it, you know, and maybe do some additional things. If I come in, you know, here we're just populating a few different queries. We're doing a function in here. We're giving it the connection information, you know, setting all the POV information to retrieve a value, other things like that. So, you know, as we see in the HS Git or the sheet info, we see that it's going against that server and all that information is there, right? So we're just going to rename this worksheet because we're going to come back to it again. That's pointing at the one server. So I'm going to open a new workbook, and I'm just going to kind of go into my provider connections to map to or open up a new connection, call it a new name, for example. And within there, I could go ahead and do the mappings, right? So I have the old URL. So the old URL is pointing to 1, and maybe here, I'm largely going to the same machine, but I'm just going to call into a different port. So here it's 9007 instead of 9000. I add that mapping in there. And now if I go back and I open up that workbook, when I open it, it'll go ahead and you'll see it already effectively remapped that workbook for me. I don't have to go through each sheet and, do other work. So, this will go through and, you can go through the example here, but basically it's just proving out that as you go from sheet to sheet, as you go from formulas, HSGets and other things, it'll do that mapping for you. It happens the one time. And then when you save it, it's good to go with that new connection. Okay. And Shaji, keep me honest. Did I miss anything on that one?
Yeah, nothing. The only thing is that you can also distribute this mapping while you install it. Okay, like a separate file. This remains in your installation folder, so you can automate this.
Okay.
That's okay. Thanks, Al. Yeah.
All right. So it creates a mapping in a file, and then you could send it to your other users. So as they open their workbooks, it'll all be taken care of if they have their own personal workbooks. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Now, another thing people have asked for is, on the web, we use drill through a lot. Customers love drill through. If you're going to a supported source, you go through and you can drill through and you can get all the way to that source many times within that web, within that screen. But when you come to Excel or within SmartView, it's a little bit different. So before we used to send you to a web URL where you saw the first level of drill through, which was to the staging tables. And then if you wanted to drill from that all the way back to the source to see transactions, for example, you had to hop out, you would continue to go down that path. So one of the things that we added, I think it was last year sometime, or maybe 2 years ago, was the ability to do that first level drill through directly in Excel. So you could open it up in a spreadsheet, right? So I could say, give it to me in a spreadsheet, give me that staging table data directly here, because I might want to use filtering, I might want to use other Essbase features on it. But the thing that we did add now is really to go all the way to do the drill through to the source while you're still in SmartView, right? So we'll show here. So for example, now I have a drill through. You'll see it come in here. This is the first level we did where we drill in and we get to our staging table on this sheet. And now I could do the drill through to source. So now this is actually going back and it's pulling in the lower level of detail that's coming from the source. And if I look on the sheet info, I actually get something that says, hey, this is from the source versus on that prior sheet that tells me it's coming from the staging table, for example. So if I come in here, the sheet info is actually telling me the sheet name is staging it's coming from, right? So I know it's a very short vignette. The key here is that we're bringing that data in. And as I mentioned before, if you want to do a little bit more analysis there, you want to use filtering and other things within within Excel to kind of analyze that data and look for stuff, you can do that now without toggling between a web browser and SmartView and then doing your next drill in, because now I really want to look at this account's source transactions that are here or that account source. I can stay completely within SmartView without toggling in and out of Excel and a web browser. So that's actually a really huge enhancement as well, something that has been both from customers and even internally, and our sales team and customers have all been looking for. So that's a great feature here. So, okay. So let's go on to a little bit, summarize some other areas here, right? So SmartView Core, we mentioned about several of the things we're doing here. Actually, I don't think this is next release. I think this is the current release now, or at least URL mapping is there already. And drill to source is there already too, right, Shaji?
Yeah, these are going to be, we have already done that, Al, but not GA yet. That's
okay. Okay, so that will be coming in. That'll be coming in the next release. Vanity URL support to support vanity URLs. We're also doing some health check updates. So if you haven't seen the health check in SmartView already, it does look at some of your settings and other things that give you some idea if you're SmartView isn't behaving properly, if your registry settings are not optimized for SmartView, or if you have potential conflicts of other add-ins, the health check is really useful. You could access it off the ribbon of SmartView to look at, and we continue to do things to help clean up unnecessary information. So one of the things that I think is within here is, SmartView Excel is kind of odd because people reuse spreadsheets all the time, and you may have a million rows in you may have, retrieved a million rows one time in a spreadsheet that you use fairly often, and then you kind of remove it. But Excel always remembers that as that last used cell, even though now you're only dealing with 100 rows, it thinks that there's 1,000 rows still in that spreadsheet potentially, right? Or, all the way to row 1,000 and column, XX, whatever. So, this really helps do some of that cleanup and keep your files clean and other things, because depending on where you're using them, that could lead to other issues. For the future items, flex forms are something new that came out that really allows you to take the power of a form, like from planning or from consolidations where you're doing some work, bring that in, and then be able to use some additional Excel features with that form capability. So being able to add rows, and do some Excel filtering on a column or other things as well. So flex forms we're going to continue to enhance. It's a great new feature that's there and gives a lot of capabilities around it. But we also want to bring in the dashboards that people create within the cloud. So being able to, you see those dashboards when you're in the web UI, and they want to access those and view those within Office as well. So we want to make sure that we can get those. Other areas is, as we start to expose MDX and other things for interacting with Essbase in the platform, we'll certainly expose those here. You'll see some ribbon naming changes. You've already seen some of those since we went to EPM Cloud, over 15 months ago. So renaming enterprise performance reporting to narrative reporting, things like that. We continue to update and enhance and clean up the ribbons to make it more streamlined. Structures, where we need to do some things for the forthcoming Redwood themes. So that's the new UI theme from Oracle. You've seen it on our website. You've seen it in other demos probably. Shankar's platform presentation, we'll talk about that as well. We obviously want to fit into Microsoft's standards for integrating into Office, but where we can utilize some of the Oracle branding and Redwood theming, we will do those types of things there. As well as multi-grid enhancements and multi-grid access, even if they're coming from different data centers, your sources. So just a few items that's coming in the future. Shaji and team are very innovative and move very quickly here with their release cadence. So, by seeing future here, that doesn't mean it's very far out at all. More specifically with narrative reporting, you've seen management reporting. We've talked about it a lot. It is the future of the reporting in the cloud. So it'll eventually replace FR. You'll start to see management reporting within the platform very soon as well. And what we really want to do there is provide all the capabilities and new enhancements there for accessing, importing, MR content or management reporting content, or just a single object from a management report. So I just want this grid or this chart from this report in. Make sure I can get those in query ready mode. Make sure I can get those fully formatted. And all those capabilities there. So those are the different things you'll see. Just some other things we're doing is for those that maybe using disclosure management or have utilized it. We're basically somewhat re-architecting it. In narrative reporting, it'll be integrated into the report package. So you'll have all the capabilities of notifications, workflow, versioning, things like that. But within SmartView, it'll have a streamlined panel or streamlined experience for the user to do tagging against disclosure management style documents. And then with that, you'll see some other capabilities we're doing there. A long-standing request has always been to a batch burst. People wanted to. I don't understand the use case, but I know many people like to do it. They want to do FR batch bursting or cascading into Excel worksheets within a workbook, and that's another area that will do that within MR, because that is the new reporting tool that you'll see in the platform or the apps that you have in the cloud, in addition to the more the centralized reporting capability. Narrative reporting is we'll provide that capability there. So that's where we'll be innovating for those types of use cases. Okay, so that's a quick flyby. Again, if you have specific questions on the desktop SmartView, go ahead and put those in Q&A. We'll have Shaji and Dave will kind of look at those, and then we can cover those when Shaji comes back on at the end to talk about some tips and tricks. We could also highlight or re-articulate some of the questions that were answered. Within SmartView for Office, the 365 browser, or Office 365, whether it's in the browser or not, this one has a little bit different. So I talked about SmartView Core on Windows, where largely we're trying to do parity and make sure that we're doing things that people could do through the web UI. That's ultimately the goal here as well. But our main focus is to get the parity of this with the Windows version of SmartView as much as we can. So if you're on Windows and you have Office installed, you would still be using the SmartView for Windows client. You would still be using what we would call a FAT client, the one that needs to be installed on the machine. Mainly because it's the most functional, it has admin functions, other things. The thin client SmartView, as mentioned, this is an iterative process, not only for our development team, but also with Microsoft. So, things like we can't just implement a double click, for example, right? We need some mechanism to capture that action that Microsoft can capture from the browser in order to do it, that then they can surface to us. That's just an example of where we have to work closely with Microsoft to get some of those same behaviors or some of those functionalities there. So, excuse me. So there's some areas there like exposing the task list and spreading and other things that we're working on there, as well as the management reporting. So, making sure I can import those reports, I can, bring in the different objects or bring it in query ready mode. But we need that for when we get management reporting embedded in the platform. So we expect customers to be able to use that if they're using that with their cloud instance and they're using that for their users because they're not deploying Office on the desktop. We want to make sure they can get to the reporting content, their forms, all the things they need to do to perform their job there. We also want to expand the sources to get to Essbase running on OCI, as well as Cloud ERP. So to us, it's the same Essbase because you just get to it through APS. So, as soon as we have the full Essbase functionality there or capabilities, we need that functionality to be moved into the provider. So that's why it's not just a SmartView to do, but we need that to work collaboratively with the Essbase team there. And then we also need to implement the extension framework. That's another thing that we needed to collaboratively work with Microsoft on to get the functionality there so that our extensions that we have for strategic finance, for narrative reporting, for things like that, we need that capability to handle extensions, and then these plugins or these extensions will work there. So that's why it's kind of noted there. And then also to extend it to Word and PowerPoint, right? So right now, all the interfaces they've exposed to us have largely been in Excel. And then, the work will transition to, okay, now how can we get some of the same functionality? We have less functionality required within the Word or PowerPoint worlds because we're not doing all the form capabilities and other things, but we still need them to provide those hooks to us so that we can support the broader Microsoft Office suite. So just a few items there that are kind of our core focus areas. As far as what does it support today? So it supports the platform-based apps. So that means financial consolidation, planning, all the modules of planning and tax reporting. Those are largely the platform-based modules, if you will. And it's just Excel, as mentioned on the previous screen. So right now we're just working within Excel. Largely focused on their end user activities. So things like forms, things like, entering data, running rules, entering notes or annotations or comments, all those types of things you do through the process of a form and some ad hoc capabilities. And then as mentioned, we'll start to look at Word, PowerPoint, and even, look at the availability of running it. Like, for example, I have Office installed. I have the Excel application on my iPad. Can I use this? Can I use this SmartView plugin if I wanted to? So, we'll kind of look at those other opportunities for adding to kind of where SmartView can operate, in the future. Kind of the core areas, this just kind of gives you a high level of what your feature sets are. So Why this is important is if you're a planning customer and you have some users that are out there, and you need to, they might just be casual users that only answer a problem every once in a while, or not answer a problem. They only have to enter a forecast or a plan. They're just irregular users, right? And maybe they don't have Office on their machine, but they have a subscription to the web base, right? You get outside of finance, and not everybody might have Office on there. Your company may be going to more of a subscription model for those folks. So you could have some folks using one, but to extend it to other users that have casual usages, you can go this route, and you can customize it for them. You can make it very tailored to their use cases, either by a user or a group, within a group or something else, that they could have a little more of a customized experience. They don't see all the buttons, for example. They only have the buttons on the ribbon they care about. But they could do the different ad hocs, the different form operations, running business rules, the mass allocate, seeing the job console, other things. You could use functions. So we have the HS get and some of these other functions that are there now. All your members select. You could execute drill through. Application building and maintenance. So kind of on the admin side now, you could do some of those admin functions that wasn't in the initial release, but we've added that. And we're starting to add contextual ribbons and other things there. So you see on the bottom, some of the copy paste data points, like from going between spreadsheets, that doesn't work currently. Things like that, but those are things that we're working on. And as mentioned, we have some requests in this Microsoft to extend those. So you can kind of look at that and see, in order to bring this next batch of users into my deployment, these are areas maybe that I want to take a look at. A couple of things here, some of the behavioral differences. Obviously, you don't have VBA on non-Windows platforms, so just be aware. You can use JavaScript APIs, other things. You don't really have the shared or private connections. A connection is defined basically with the manifest file that you're doing there. But most of that business logic, most of those feature execution is defined at the server side. So the client footprint is very minimal, doesn't require admin and all those other things. You have a centralized deployment model, so you don't deal with MSI and silent installs and all those other things. Again, there isn't a double click there for Zoom operations. It's menu driven currently, so you have to kind of highlight what you're looking to do, and then you could zoom in from the menu. You can't just double click. Formula fills, some of those things aren't there yet. So again, this is all documented in the Smart View guide, but just keep it in mind. As you look at, is there use cases for me to use this in order to have more users or different audiences participate, where Smart View windows could be intimidating. I can make this easier for this class of users or this group of users. As mentioned, just kind of highlighting some things that we're doing within here. In 2011, we have some fixed links and other things that we're providing there, because if you have a workbook that you want to share from a Mac user that they're doing some things in Smart View and they want to share it over to a Windows user that has the Smart View for Windows client, there's just some issues of just sharing that directly. So we have capabilities there now to kind of fix those links so the recipient can be up and running and not have to deal with working with any of those. We have a new function builder, a new member selector that's coming in there. As mentioned, in the future, we have task list, composite, flex forms, shortcut keys, just to make it easier, because I mentioned that a lot of things are menu driven and you might not want to be so mouse specific. So we did identify, a certain, shortcut keys that we were able to, reserve for use within Smart View here. So if you want to do some pivoting and stuff like that, you could just do shortcut keys instead of always navigating up and doing things. You could, highlight your member and then just hit the control keys if you want, or the shortcut keys. So, just keep in mind that that's coming. So we're going to be adding some shortcut keys and other capabilities there, just to make it more streamlined, since you don't have the double click capabilities there. So, whether it's faster or not, as opposed to using the menus, that is what it is. But also for accessibility and other things, you need shortcut keys and not just mouse actions or menu actions all the time either. So you need ways to navigate through so that all users can get the experience. Within here, and if you're looking for some of the Oracle presentations, I'll make sure to get many of the Oracle presentations over to the NRL team for posting along with the replays. So we will be posting these. But if you know Oracle, we always tweak these up to the last minute. So we just, submit our final presentation. So, lots of things you see under R&D underway. So things around multi-grid, structure support. So to bring in those structures and navigation flows that you see, within there, the task list as mentioned, within Office 365, within the platform, dashboards, flex form enhancements, in the center column I'm looking at. We talked about the disclosure management, those types of things. PCM, so, we haven't had the broad-based PCM support. We're working on that. PCM is one of those things where it's also migrating to the platform. So it'll be built directly on the platform versus being kind of like account reconciliations, where it was a little more of a lift and shift solution that went into the cloud. As part of being on the platform, it'll have support already directly for that, but we're also looking to add the support in the interim until they're on the platform. And then we'll talk about InDesign and LibreOffice shortly. And then going on that, as mentioned, whether or not we extend the Smart View for 365 Mac over to on-prem Hyperion, we'll take a look at, and just kind of some other areas around, Google or LibreOffice, those types of things. So we'll go ahead and get in here. So what are we doing? We'll talk a little bit about, I mentioned R&D Central before, so we'll do a little bit of an R&D Central here for some work we have underway. One of the things we're doing, we've talked about Google in the past. The simple answer for Google is this. We need a very close relationship with the vendor that provides it. We need a good, legal agreements and other things around there. And so Oracle and Google having a collaborative relationship. I mean, we work closely with the Google folks on some of the prototypes we've done and other things, but there needs to be a deeper arrangement there for us to continue, into a relationship around there. So, it's there. We have some working prototypes, but we're just waiting to see where that pans out. So today, instead of showing what we've shown previously for Google Sheets, we'll do it a little bit with LibreOffice instead. As mentioned, it's built on the Office 365 work we already did with Smart View, or the Smart View for Office 365. So it uses some of this, it reuses the UIs, the functionality is still there. So it uses a lot of the existing functionality. So it wasn't like a tremendous update to go do that, right? So we'll just take a look in here. Here we are in LibreOffice. We're using the calc sheets. I guess that's what they call their Excel. And you'll see here how, I've connected into the source. I could do my zoom in. I kind of have a little bit more of an old style looking ribbon on the bottom, in terms of drilling in. I have my options there to suppress missing or to highlight a value for missing. I can do remove only, keep only, all those capabilities within here. So, this will just highlight, some of the capabilities you have to do some updates. So this is just doing a flat update against like Excel or something else. Now I'm doing an adjust. So, again, we're showing some examples here of how you could adjust the data moving out. I can, run a rule. I could provide prompts if I need to provide a prompt as part of that to do. So adding Sales East within there as a new department when I add that department. So then I can go change the POV and go work with that, right? So this is just an example of, working with it, getting to sheet info, and you kind of see how robust this is already. This wasn't, a quick little prototype that just kind of POC'd one area, like retrieving a grid, pivoting it, and then getting out. We're actually, doing all the capabilities around there, including the options of formatting and the members and different features there. And you see that we're going against a planning application here, for example. So you have the copy versions and you have all these different, capabilities available to you. So, we're interested in hearing from you. We're interested in hearing from customers. So one thing is about your progression through Office's strategy on whether you're staying Windows or whether you're going to Office 365 subscriptions over the web. And then secondly is obviously for those customers that may be moving away from Office altogether, or maybe your corporate strategy is to move away from Office for different Office technologies or Office offerings. Again, keep us apprised of those, because we're part of pursuing this and part of bringing it to market is based on where our customers are at and what the audience is for it. So once we deliver it, you have to support it. We don't like to introduce something and then pull it away. So if if that is an area, we'd really like to know that there's some groundswell for these variants of Office in order to pursue them. Okay, let's go to the next. So let's talk briefly about the Adobe InDesign, right? So here, we have some different use cases. We've largely centered this around narrative reporting, but also using it with the management reporting capabilities that are available within narrative and soon will be available within the platform, as I mentioned. What we're doing here is twofold. One is, importing different, objects into Adobe InDesign. Right, so the goal here is, hey, I have these artifacts, I have different information that's coming from EPM Cloud that I need to put into this glossy. I'm doing a highly stylized annual report. I'm doing something that needs to have something more than what I can do within Word or something else. I mean, yeah, you can import some Word capabilities into that, but once you start having data update or other things happen, it's not like that's refreshable, right? So our goal here is to try and find out and see how far we could push integration with Adobe InDesign to even allow for refreshability and all those other things there. So you'll see here on the left, if you're familiar with narrative reporting, you'll see a lot of things that sound familiar. If you haven't looked at narrative reporting before, I'll kind of describe it as part of this quick little demo here. Variables are really those things. So variables are basically values, directional words, other things that I have that are being driven by data or other rules associated with, information that's coming from my application. So, for example, I have a sales variant, or I'm doing an income statement that compares this year to last year. So I want to know, did sales increase or did it decrease? And if so, by how much in either direction, right? So variables would handle that. So when the data gets updated, those variables are automatically updated. So if I'm using variables within my text to say, we saw sales increase of, $5 million for a 4% increase over forecast or increase year over year, whatever that may be. A lot of that could be automated. A lot of that sentence could be automated using variables. And when the data changes or roll it forward to the next period, now it reflects differently based on the data that's coming in. So that's why those types of things are really important. And so really what we're doing here is we're introducing, so regardless of whether you're using Windows Smart View, regardless of whether you're using the MacOS or browser version of Smart View, this is actually a Smart View plugin for InDesign. And InDesign by nature is a client software. So yeah, it's a client thing of Smart View, but it's kind of its own thing. So you're not using the same Smart View that you use within Excel or within Office or on a Mac. You're using kind of a new Smart View plugin that we're building here if we deliver this. So hopefully you've enjoyed my little different ways in which my demo is being displayed here, but it all comes up big screen anyways. So here we're in Adobe InDesign. So if you've never seen InDesign before, on the left is its palette. All those things on the left are things it works with. We're jumping into narrative reporting, and we're going to go ahead and import in Oracle's intro or part of its 10K, right? So we're just bringing in some information, for example. And within that came a bunch of information with it. I apologize, the screen may be a little small here, but you'll see here now that I'm dealing within Adobe InDesign, now I could do things like I can highlight, I can change font sizes, I could do other things because we imported it directly into InDesign, and now I can go ahead and operate on this. So I can set up my different headers, my footers, I can do all types of things I may want to do here. So you'll see here how we're just kind of changing how it sits within the frame that's defined within the page within InDesign. And I can also add other text. So for example, on the bottom, I may want to add, a couple of different text things at the bottom of my page. And let's just say, one of those things I'm going to add is actually a variable. So I want to come in here and give it the current date or something, or the date of the reporting period, for example. I can go ahead and put that in there, right? So I'm actually plugging a variable directly into this page that's coming along with maybe a sign by, which is just a signature, which is maybe just a variable or an image file, or something else. So I could bring those in, then you could size them, you could do the things you need to do within InDesign. right? And so, part of this is just kind of bringing those different capabilities in here, allow you to import reports, report package content, docklets, etc., while still laying in, the standard ipsum lorem, text here. Now I'm taking some things from this, I'm adding other text within here for this publication, but allows me to just grab things more easily and work from a palette of what I have available to me and drop them in. And the SmartView plugin just provides or exposes EPM cloud content within that palette. So you can think of it as that. I have these objects, which could be a management report or docklets or variables or other content. So just, FYI. So it's kind of a work we're doing here. We do have many requests for this. We do have customers that produce annual report content or other things through narrative reporting, and they want an easier way to bring that into Adobe InDesign, right? So, just a quick kind of vignette of that in true R&D Central fashion. Okay, so Shaji, this is where you get to talk a little bit about your RESTful APIs and things that you would be more in tune with.
Yeah, Al, how good are you looking at time?
Yeah, we probably got about 5 minutes or so.
Okay, yeah. Actually, we are with the Office 365 framework, we got a lot of functionality like RESTful API coming as a part of its implementation. And this RESTful API, you will be able to get artifacts from planning application as well as to work with an ad hoc analysis or a form. And these are going to be helpful when like integration with the Python or other applications are coming in, or other third-party application come in. You will see that there are some developments that will happen in the future related to Excel and Python integration. We believe the REST API would be very helpful over there. And if we go to the next one, you could move to the next one. Yeah. Next, what I want to focus is a few common patterns what we see in our customers' usage. The first one is with the COM add-in. What we recommend is that with the SmartView Health Check and the recommended settings will solve many of the common problems what you see. For example, like timeouts or flashing some screens, etc., by disabling animations. Another functionality we are building in, previously Al talked about, is the workbook health check, where you will be able to delete some of the issues that generally some of the workbooks come up with, say too many styles or links that are not pointing anywhere, or metadata getting overpopulated, etc. So you'll be able to see them, do a preview and delete them. And we do make a copy before saving it so that your original document stays intact. Next item is that in the past, many of our users were asking us about how to automate SmartView testing using VBA. And for a cloud, it was preventing, the login screen was preventing them from completely automating it. With the VBA, what we provided, you can provide the username and password, and you can complete it automated without any user prompt there. In that format, the username need to be the tenant ID need to be added to the username. That's the only thing that you need to remember. You can code the whole VBA scripting sequence. URL mapping, Al talked about. Then next one is that if you run into a problem with the extensions, all the extensions are saved under this particular folder. You can delete them, and there are nothing else like a registry or other locations where we save them. So if you delete it from here, you can check for updates, it will get updated. And when you run into a problem, use the SmartView diagnostics. That will give us more information for us to further debug. And if you move to the next slide, yeah. Like one back, please, yeah. So here again, like some common patterns in using the web add-in, and the next slide actually, yeah, is that anytime when you're using federated single sign-on, the login sequence may be going through multiple domains. You need to make sure to add those domains so that Excel will trust those domains to be there. One of the symptoms that what you see is that when you try to sign in through Mac, for example, it will start a browser window and show a page there. The way to fix that is by adding the login dialog, login.smartway.oracle.com, or it could be login.okta.com, etc. Whatever domain you go through during a sign-on process, you need to make sure to add those in as a part of the domain while creating the manifest. You can check with your IT and they will be able to guide you to see different domains that they are using to complete the authentication process.
So Shaji, real quick before we go to the next slide, one question was just, did the tenant ID .username, is that already released or is that coming?
That is already released. And
okay.
we have a VBA API called add header to SmartView request.
Okay.
So you can create a basic auth request over there and add that to the header. And this was released as a 11.125.9.10 release.
Okay, so it's been out there for a while. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
This is a common pattern what we see again. Many of our users have multiple instances of FCCS or PBCS, for example. And with the Office Web 365 web add-in, every instance need one manifest to be created. And if you have multiple of them, the way to manage that is that you can make a copy of one of the existing manifest files. There are three things to look for. The ID is the one that is making a manifest unique between the other one. So you can make a minor edits. I'm recommending maybe like change the last digit, for example. Then next one is that how your users are going to see when you deploy this. And you can change the display name to something else. For example, a SmartView PBCS, SmartView PBCS test, production, for example, that way. Then the third item is what's the name of the add-in that you see when the user loads them. This is that ribbon name. So if you make a copy and change these parameters and redeploy, you will, and of course, you change the URL where this is pointing to, you will be able to deploy multiple, or you'll be able to use multiple instances and use it along with Office 365. This is another tip.
Yeah, we've got maybe about another minute, and then we got to wrap up.
Okay, yeah, this is quickly. If you want to use the functions between Office running on a Windows machine versus a Mac, and function formats generally will have its path added to the beginning. Use fix links to fix them when you're using in Windows as well as when you're using it on a Mac. Yeah, that's it from here. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, cool. And then the last one was just verifying. You said it was in 9.10, and you should just be able to the tenant.username, right?
Right. 9.10 or 20.100.
Yeah, I would just check. Yeah, for who's asking, George, just go ahead and check. I mean, I would just go to the most recent one and look there, but it should be in the VBA documentation there. So just look for the header VBA. So, okay. So I didn't know if you had any additional questions or anything that came in, Dave, that we needed to re-articulate here. I think we're good.
Yeah, correct. I think we're good.
Okay. Okay, great. We know it was short. SmartView is always a tough one. I know even at Kscope and other conferences, it's very well attended because its audience is, as mentioned, across on-prem and cloud, and across many providers, Essbase, EPM, et cetera. So I know this was a high level. If you've got if you've got specific questions, certainly if you're on Customer Connect at all, you could always ask us questions there. Put it where it makes the most sense in platform or within the business process. Use the SmartView tag and we'll answer questions and keep monitoring it there. If you're not on Customer Connect yet, but you have cloud, you should join. And if you don't have any cloud, nothing from Oracle in the cloud, then you could just contact us directly on that with an email or some message or through support. Make sure to answer the questions for you. So with that, I want to thank you all for attending today. Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Shaji, for helping out, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.